Ah, Tony Stark. He always has such nice suits. The Iron Man suit has gone through some big changes from its humble beginnings in a cave. Let's take a look at the MCU's Iron Man suits and the comic book inspirations for them. Tony Stark's armor may have begun as a way to save Tony's life, but it managed to go from saving his literal heart to his metaphorical heart. The suits in the different phases managed to reflect that development. From the literal life-saving of the Phase 1 suits to the completely adaptable Phase 3 suits. To understand how that works, you have to understand what kind of a hero Iron Man is. There are a few kinds of heroes. There are the underdogs, the ones who find the power to stand up to those who would keep them down. You know, the ones that could do this all day. Yeah, that guy. There are heroes that are driven by revenge, who were wronged and now they're out to even the score, and fight in the rain. Fighting in the rain is pretty cool. Then there are the redemptive heroes, the ones who have become heroic to fight the wrongs of their past. Tony Stark might be able to make you feel like he's a cool exec with a heart of steel, but the Tony Stark we meet at the beginning of Iron Man is less of a heart of steel than it is a heart in peril. Tony Stark doesn't care about anyone but himself. He gets a crash course in empathy from one Ho Yinsen, and a battery-powered magnet in a cave in Afghanistan. While the war has changed in the comic books, the basics remained in the MCU's Iron Man origins. Tony Stark gets shrapnel embedded in his chest that the Arc Reactor keeps from penetrating his heart. Tony was supposed to be building a missile system while kidnapped in a cave, but instead called an audible and made a suit of armor to make a really cool escape. The Mark I armor is pretty basic. None of the sleek moving parts we've grown accustomed to or that dash of red paint. We don't even get repulsor rays, just a flamethrower and escape rockets. In the MCU, this suit lasts for exactly one escape, though it is salvaged by his one-time mentor turned menace Obadiah Stane. In the comics, Tony was a little more sentimental, keeping the suit for a bit but giving it a cool gold paint job. It's the one he's wearing when the Avengers are formed. The first suit sets the tone for Tony Stark's journey. He's saving himself and saving others. The Mark II suit in the MCU is a developmental suit, a leap forward from a suit built with scraps, but its development takes its own toll, including taking out a 427 Cobra. Ouch. This introduces the elements that Iron Man has come to be known for, the repulsors and the sleeker look. In the comics, Tony Stark goes for a slimmer look when someone starts manipulating his big bulky one. It's the Mark III suit that gets the classic red and gold look, just in time to take on a modified version of his old armor being worn by Obadiah Stane. Turns out the old suit didn't do anything for Stane's heart. If the suit was saving Tony's life in Iron Man 2 the suit began to turn on him. Well, specifically the element used to power his Arc Reactor that powers the suit and keeps Tony's heart from getting penetrated by the shrapnel. The Mark IV armor that he wears in Iron Man 2 is the workhorse of the Iron Man lineup. It's the longest lasting suit in the comics and the one he uses as a backup, like an old reliable beater car you never get rid of. In the MCU, it's the suit he's wearing while he self-destructs, and it's trying to kill him. As it turns out, when Tony learns to stop defeating himself, he also learns that there's an element that will stop the suit from killing him as well. All of this leads to the development of the Mark VI suit that he wears into the Avengers until he goes in for that stylish costume change with Loki. Iron Man 2 also has a nod from the comics when Whiplash attacks the Monaco Grand Prix. That's where we see the Mark V armor that is carried around as a suitcase. One of the issues of the Iron Man armor is that you can't exactly hide it under your clothes. But a business executive always has a sturdy briefcase, so that would mean that Tony could Iron Man up at any time he wanted. Unfortunately for the MCU Tony Stark, Whiplash put an end to that armor pretty darn quickly. The suiting up process gets that upgrade for the Avengers in the Mark VII armor. Plus it allows Tony a chance to have that awesome scene with Loki. If you go by the Empire Strikes Back rule of trilogies, the second movie has to be a bummer. Just like the Act 3 structure for Hollywood scripts, the second act has to end with an all is lost moment for our heroes to overcome in that third act or installment. The rebellion is scattered, and Han is frozen in carbonite, or the Avengers are broken up and Captain America is in hiding. The suits in Phase 2 are suits of unintended consequences, and one of the few times that the MCU didn't seem to completely coordinate its storyline. The first outing is in Iron Man 3, where a Tony, shook up by aliens invading Earth and a fall from space, starts panic building suits. Like, a lot of suits. When we last saw Tony, he was on the Mark VI. Now he's wearing the Mark 42. That's a lot of hobby building. There are two developments that are key to the suits in Iron Man 3. First of all is the Mark 42, which expands on Tony's obsession with the transition from Tony Stark to Iron Man. In the comics, this is 42's gimmick as well, but it was suggested by none other than the Build-A-Bear himself, Rocket Raccoon, who suggested a modular design for the Iron Man suit. The real groundwork, though, is the Iron Legion. In Iron Man 3, it acts as a backup when Tony finally confronts Killian and the Extremis problem. First, it's a glimpse at the comic book world of Iron Man, who has a special suit for every situation. The final battle managed to be a who's who of Iron Man suits, including a preview of a fan favorite. This included suits like the stealth armor, the skin armor. That was comic book Tony's first attempt to create a suit that could change on the fly before going nano, and a brute armor that lays the groundwork for Veronica, the Hulkbuster. At the end of Iron Man 3, Tony agrees to destroy all the extra armors after the House Party Protocol defeated Killian and Extremis. The next time we see Tony and Iron Man, the Iron Legion is back. This time, however, it's not a hodgepodge of specific use suits, but a robot army of Iron Man suits. So I guess the problem he thought Pepper had was the variety of different suits. The biggest change is the removal of the Arc Reactor from Tony's chest. Tony no longer carries the power supply for his armor in his chest cavity, which stands to reason since there are suits without even people in them roaming around. Here's where the unintended consequences really comes into play. Age of Ultron revolves around Stark and Banner taking the Mind Stone from Loki's scepter and creating an AI robot that will handle the threats of the world on the Avengers' behalf. Ultron would be a suit of armor around the world. Except that Ultron thought the first thing he needed to do to save the world was get rid of all the people. Way to go, Tony. Using the Iron Legion to go from being a program to a party crasher, Ultron eventually designed his own replacement bodies. For personal use, the Mark 43 armor was really just a cosmetic upgrade. The star of the show, of course, is Veronica, the Hulkbuster armor. Mark 44 was really more of an add-on than its own suit. In comic book terms, the Hulkbuster armor is able to lift 175 tons and is built to sustain punishment delivered by the Hulk, whose bench limit is entirely dependent on just how mad he is. Other features include a jackhammer-powered fist that can also be fired off like an old Shogun warrior figure. The Hulkbuster armor ironically becomes Banner's ride when the Hulk decides to sit out the invasion of Thanos, where he makes effective use of that detachable fist. The Mark 45 armor makes its debut in the final showdown with Ultron, which has some of the biggest changes in the Iron Man suits. And like all good change, it comes from the inside. It turns out that when Ultron unleashed himself on the internet, he presumably watched all the cat videos, and then did what actual AIs have done when released on the internet. He became a giant jerk. His first plan as a jerk was to gain access to the world's nuclear weapons, but there was an AI already in place that was a nice guy and went about preventing that. And that AI's name was Jarvis, the operating system named after the Stark family butler that operated all of Tony's suits and tech. As a reward for preventing Ultron from nuking the world, Jarvis became the base for a second super android, Vision. That means that a new AI had to handle the suit operating duties, and that job goes to Friday, or Female Replacement Intelligent Digital Assistant Youth. Comics love their acronyms. Tech-wise, the suit from Captain America Civil War adopts actor Robert Downey Jr.'s flair for hiding food on set by finding ways to hide suit pieces in his watch or the seat of his helicopter. Do you think that the suit lives in the helicopter as his helicopter suit? Or does he have to load it each time? The real effect of Civil War is those unintended consequences coming around. The damage from Ultron and the deterioration of trust the world has in the Avengers. This is for all the Avengers, but it's Tony that feels it the most. This is a holdover from the Phase 2 arc of unintended consequences. A lesson he finally learns the way all the best lessons are learned, by having to teach them to someone else. In Tony's case, that comes from his Civil War recruit Peter Parker, the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. The only notable tech demonstrated in the Mark 47 armor of Spider-Man Homecoming is the ability to operate remotely, or as a suit and the detachable thrusters. The big star of Phase 3 and the completion of Tony's arc when it comes to suits is the Big 5-0, the nano suit. Now the entire suit can be contained in a triangular medallion worn where the Arc Reactor used to go, and with a touch of the finger releases the nanobots. Nanobots are modern sci-fi's cure for, how does that work exactly? In the comics, Stark's 50th suit used symbiote technology to create a malleable suit. But for simplicity's sake, it's nanobots for Iron Man in Avengers Infinity War. Now the suit can respond to his needs in real time. Need more boost? Nanobots got you covered. Need to anchor a Titan's foot to the ground while you rocket punch him? Well, nanobots got you covered there too. This is Iron Man fully realized, able to suit up in a moment's notice and to adapt to unforeseen situations in real time. The final and best expression of this is the Mark 85, or the 52nd suit in the MCU. There's little change from the nano suit we've already seen, except one key moment. Built into that suit is the ability to recreate a version of the Infinity Gauntlet that allows Tony to give Thanos a taste of his own snap. Oh snap! In that moment, Tony Stark completes his journey from someone who wouldn't fall on the grenade for the other guy to making the big sacrifice for half of all things, as his armor finally becomes an uninterrupted extension of himself. Aw, see? Tony does have a heart, and it's not made of steel after all. That's how Tony's suits were part of his arc in the MCU, and how they relate to the suits from the comics. Which one is your favorite? Which one do you want to see in the MCU? Let us know in the comments, and while you're there, why not subscribe to CBR? Thanks for watching.